Andrew of the UK, and welcome to the Power of Partying, Phoenix, Arizona. It is a great privilege and pleasure to be here for my first ever speaking engagement in Arizona, first ever lecture about partying. Turns out that talking about partying counts as partying. Thank you very much for being here in this room when you could have been so many other places on this Monday night. That really does mean a lot to me. So from the bottom of my heart, from the top of my heart, from all around, all sides of my heart, thank you for choosing to spend some time with me here considering the power of partying together. I could not do this without you, so please consider yourselves sponsors of me in my efforts to party for a living. You are allowing me to do this. You're supporting me in this quite literally. So thank you for financially contributing to this humble endeavor. Also, thank you to the most noble members of the Masonic Lodge here for allowing me into these hallowed halls. This is a quite suitable environment, if I may be so bold as to say this, for partying is yet just another system of attainment with the hopes of establishing a mindset with which to appreciate and be worthy of this thing called being alive. So thank you to the Macy's for letting us do this. And in keeping with the theme of Phoenix, I think we can appreciate the symbolic significance of the noble firebird rising from its ashes. We today can rise again. And I myself have been rising every day on this tour from a sort of burned out sense of destruction in my own soul. As much as I imagined this tour would be fulfilling, it has also been crushing. As much as I anticipated it would be easy, it's also been the hardest tour I've ever done. And it's only not even a quarter of the way over yet. So I really was looking to the Phoenix to provide that kind of inspiration, that each day on this tour I feel like I'm rising from my lowest, weakest points, and throughout the day anticipating this event as a chance to enliven my spirit, hopefully all our spirits, be in this room together to cheer on those strongest parts of ourselves, to bring them out of ourselves and celebrate them in the spirit of partying. And maybe in the way that that Phoenix birdie is symbolic of rising above that adversity, or even in fact using the richness of those ashes as they fertilize the spirit soil, that we can blossom and grow to be even more than we would be otherwise through those fires, through those trials and tribulations. We have to harness the fire. As we can see, fire has the ability to damage and burn and destroy, but it also, of course, can fuel and warm and cook and be used for all kinds of good things. Let us harness our power in all its forms, including anger, negativity, weakness. All those are energies just like fire, and if put to good use, they won't burn us up. They'll, in fact, just fuel our pursuits towards our ultimate destiny of being a good human being. So, that counts as partying. Now, I should have said this earlier, but I would like to offer a small disclaimer. I am a professional partier, but I remain an amateur human being. And in the spirit of that, I come here not really as a teacher or as any sort of authority figure, but of course as just another humble servant to the party God, standing with you as we together try to make this most of this thing called life and cheer each other on. Again, in a spirit of encouragement. So I need this as badly or more badly than any of you. And this tour is as much in a self-interested way for that. I'm trying to save my own life. I am not a naturally positive person, but it's through harnessing again that negativity that's been in me and trying to not only overcome it, but actually embrace it and use it as fuel. I wouldn't be doing any of this, if I didn't need to. So I'm thankful for that darkness in me that made me want to strive and turn towards the light. And I say that again in a humble, humiliating way, because as much as this is an ego boost, being up here on this most regal of stages, it also is quite humiliating, in the best way, in a vulnerable way. So I open my heart to you, and thank you for being here to receive it. More about how this event tonight will work. I mean, for a large part, I am making it up as I go along, for better or worse, in case you couldn't tell. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I have an inkling, and I tried to illustrate that on the tour poster to some degree. This is a collaboration of sorts, again, a pep rally, if you will, for the human spirit. And if we can accomplish something, I would hope that it's, again, just a sense that not necessarily we learned any groundbreaking new idea. I mean, that would be great, but at the very least, that we can return to the rest of the world outside of this room with an increased sense of determination, an increased sense of optimism, that we really do have what it takes. We have all that we need right there inside, and let us unleash it together and amplify it through this thing called humanity and support. We can't do the hard work for one another. I can't live for you, you can't live for me. That has to happen individually inside each of us from the inside out, but we can rally around each other and support each other. That's an amazing thing that human beings can do. We can care about each other, and I certainly care about you. So thank you again for allowing this to be taking place right now. This is an event in 3 parts. The first part has already begun. It's this rambling that I do. And then the second part is the part that really starts to boost my spirit. That's when we get to talk together and discuss life in the most hardcore, deep and shallow terms. That's really the open mic portion. There will be a microphone brought out. So I encourage you now, if you have things on your mind, as I imagine you must, that you want to talk about, this is the sacred moment we have set aside to get into it, to really tear away at life. So consider what you would like to talk about. The odds are I've probably been thinking about it too, even if I don't realize that I've been thinking about it. We probably all are on the same page in one way or another. We don't usually have those precious times formally set aside where we get to really talk about being alive. And that's okay, because it's very intense to talk about that stuff. Being alive is very intense. But let us develop that strength to dive in as deep as we can go, or as shallow as we'd like to go, and see what happens. So I'll open the floor in a moment to that. And then if there's something that you'd like to discuss but you don't feel comfortable announcing it in front of everybody here, believe me, I can relate. That's a very intense feeling as well. There will be a little space outside of the auditorium where I've set up party posters and party t-shirts, and we will then proceed to hang out there so we can discuss things one-on-one, take snapshots if you'd like, talk about whatever else is on your mind, and just, again, praise each other for the fact that we exist at the same time. Because it's a privilege to exist at the same time as you, especially, again, in this room together. I want to add another thing to the disclaimer. This is also meant as a compliment. I was very excited about arriving in Phoenix because I've had very good dining experiences here, enjoying foods. And last night we made a point of indulging in Korean food. And then earlier today we indulged in Mexican food. And both of these foods are extremely savory, extremely enjoyable, very tasty, very delicious, and very high in sodium. This has led to a small amount of bloating, and I would like to take credit for that. It was a decision. Adult onset male bloating is real. So that if you notice some puffiness about the eyes, this is just the result of extremely savory Korean and Mexican food. That's all that is. So what is partying? Well, never did I think that I would have to define that word. I was drawn to that word myself as a very young person because it summed up what I thought made life worth living. This sense of gleeful enthusiasm about not being dead. And it made those harder parts of life a little more sublime, or gave me the perspective to extract a little more meaning, or at least gave me the joyful energy to withstand those more difficult parts of life. This party mindset. Now, it is a form of idealism. It may be impossible to live life with every passing moment being a party, but it's something I'm striving for. In fact, even striving to live every moment as a party counts as partying. That's the beauty of it. This headspace is designed to sit above everything else and contain everything. Again, that may not be possible, but it's a noble effort to be worthy of the chance to exist. It's unbelievable. It's so overwhelming that we even exist at all that no wonder we kind of pushed that realization to the back of our head. I mean, most of us, including myself, don't walk around with this full-blown realization like, wow, I'm alive right now, I actually exist. It's very easy. Most things don't exist. Most things have not come into existence. With all the billions of things that do exist, and I'm talking about not just people and plants and animals and this earth, but the whole universe, there's also a lot of stuff that hasn't yet come into existence. So somehow we got this chance to exist. Now, maybe we didn't ask for it. Some could argue that it's not necessarily even a good thing because it has oftentimes involved suffering and pain. But we have an imagination. We have what appears to be free will. And using those two powers, those attributes, those gifts, we can make a decision, or as some would call it, a leap of faith, to decide that it must be good to exist. And even if it's not, or even if we don't get that proof, that intangible, factual proof that humans desire so much, we can decide that of all ways to look at it, we might as well look at it as a good thing. Because that does seem to make it feel better. Now that was probably for most people, including myself, the initial mindset. It seems like when you're born, it doesn't really occur to you to consider that it might not have been a good event. You take for granted the fact that this was all meant to happen, and so therefore it must be good. And then this thing called doubt starts to enter one's mind, and at first it's a thrilling power to be able to discern and distinguish and criticize and judge and pick apart and make sort of declarative, absolute statements about the things around you. And that can start with food that you like or don't like. It can involve music you like or don't like, people, places, and things. And then, of course, the biggest thing of all, life itself. Is this good or bad? And we start to maybe go back on the initial instinct that it was such a good thing and think, well, maybe it's not, because there's been times when it's very hard, and it's really been painful, and it's hurt. Physically hurt, mentally hurt, spiritually hurt. I can say that, again, on this tour, the thing that has marked it more than everything is contrast. I have been experiencing the lowest lows that I've probably ever felt, or as low. Meaning that, like a concert, my band and I actually just played the other day in Minneapolis to a group of zombies, of all things. It was a zombie pub crawl, and it was a very joyful, spirited event. And as you may be familiar with my rock and roll music, it involves songs about partying, and it involves dance moves based on that party spirit. There's a lot of thrashing, hamstring extension, high kicking, shoulder flails, fist pumps, and of course a lot of headbanging. Now after an event like that, my body will be quite sore the next day, much like exercise. There's a muscular soreness, there can be a soreness in the throat, definitely a bang over, as they call it, from all that headbanging. But in a way, I'm glad, because I can tell, wow, I really pushed it, I really went good. If you're, lifting weights or exercising, you realize that you're going to confront a type of physical discomfort in that process, and you embrace it because you realize that you're growing through that. You're improving yourself in some way, or at least you're challenging yourself in a way that is good for your body. Well, this tour doesn't necessarily involve the physical demands of a rock and roll concert. It is talking about partying. And I think what I've noticed now is I have a soul hangover every day. I'll feel probably the best I can possibly feel by the end of this event tonight. I'll have these inklings and hunches in me confirmed and encouraged by you. I'll be cheered on and surrounded by friends and this feeling of, wow, maybe life really can be good. Partying really does work. We're doing this. And then, almost because I confronted with you this party spirit, as has been said, if you party into the abyss parties back into you, and you tear your soul apart. You have to grow. The soul is forced to grow, and it's gonna hurt. Now, it's not the same pain as, touching a hot burner on a stove, and it's not necessarily the same pain as losing a loved one or having your heart broken, but it is a real pain nonetheless. And I encourage us to appreciate those more subtle types of pain, and to actually try to bring them about, to not only not avoid them, and to not only not try to fear them, but to actually create opportunities to do it. Because in many ways, I don't even want to do what I'm doing right now. It's quite frightening in a way. It's quite intense. But the party gods compel me. The power of partying compels me. I'm trying to follow this destiny. And usually the only way I can tell that something is worth doing in life if it has that kind of pain attached to it, that spirit hangover pain. So again, not only do we embrace that pain and appreciate it and consider it almost the feeling of being alive as much as pleasure is the feeling of being alive, let's seek out and challenge ourselves as much as we can to not only not avoid it, but to create opportunities to really feel that pain. That's the soul hangover. Yeah, okay. There's a gavel up here. Okay. The other day, someone was doing one of these speeches at a festival in Joshua Tree, which is quite a mystical atmosphere. I had never been there before. It was not my nature to go into the desert. Some people are very drawn to that. It seems like everything in Mother Nature is telling humans, don't tread here. Here there be rattlesnakes and scorps and cacti and oppressive sun and a lack of water and shade. Yet, human beings are very drawn to places they are sort of told not to go. So anyway, we wound up in this desert, and I was talking about partying, much to my amazement, because no one is more baffled than I am that I'm getting to do this. It really doesn't make any sense, but in the best way, and that counts as partying. So I was talking about partying, and a young woman entered the auditorium and got up actually quite bravely, maybe with the encouragement of some mind-altering attitude that she was in, and said, hey, this is nice and I appreciate what you're doing here, but I don't understand why you guys are talking about these things about life. Why are you asking about this stuff? I said, you know what, that's a very good question. I don't know. I don't know why, but what else are we going to talk about? What else are we going to spend our time doing? It almost takes more energy and effort to avoid talking about life than it does just to dive into it. And the great thing is once we do dive into it, we realize we kind of were already dove into it all along, and we can stop wasting all that energy sort of pretending that it's not happening. I think there's a type of real enlightenment in realizing that you've already been enlightened. And maybe that's the whole trick. It is not straining to develop the capacity to reach some type of understanding. It's the straining to remove the confusion that's been telling you that you haven't already had it all along. Okay, that counts as part. I wanted to talk about disassociation. This was sort of I can't really, can't really work this into a constant flow. I had not used notes for most of these events so far. And then I decided to contradict that in the spirit of partying and use notes. So forgive me for that. That's always a good approach when you can identify a mindset or a mode of living that you've been using sometimes sort of subconsciously for any period of time, just flip it and reverse it and do the opposite. Yeah, that counts as partying for sure. Going against your instincts, only then to find out that they were right all along. That's quite satisfying in its own reverse way. Disassociation. I was thinking about this because on this tour there's been a lot of driving and a lot of traveling in general. And I'm sure that you've experienced this before, and I'm bringing it up only because I thought about a way to take it further than I had in the past. I've written about this in my advice column when it comes to driving in cars. And that strange phenomenon that I'm sure has been covered quite heavily and that we're all very familiar with, of when someone else is in a car, they become this total new type of being that is a blend of the car itself, the person in it, and just sort of seeing this silhouette, maybe the back of their head, the other cars on the road, and even the car itself takes on a type of face or humanoid kind of spirit to itself. There's a word for that. I can't think. What is that word when you see a human form in something that isn't human? Like a... Okay, it's all generally the right idea. Anyway, so that goes on. And you find yourself interacting with these other people in the car, and then slowly, in a very abstract way, thinking of yourself a little bit as this reduced version of a person in this vehicle. And that's why road rage is so easy, because generally we wouldn't behave the way we would on the road if we were walking around in a park, for example, or even standing in line at the grocery store. There's a type of intimacy that is removed by the distance that's created by the car, the separation by the car. And I was thinking about this in terms of the computer, and how this is very similar to the distancing, the disassociation that happens on the computer, with not only comments and opinions and writing, but just, again, this atmosphere of going into this space, much like going into a car. It doesn't count any less as a real form of communication, just like driving in a car doesn't count any less as a real form of transportation, as opposed to walking or something like that. They all count, but they point towards even a deeper phenomenon, which I was thinking about today. Being disassociated from your own self, where your own life kind of encapsulates you like the car or like the computer, and removes you from a familiarity or a closeness with your own true self. And of course, as a result of other true selves, meaning even other human bodies that you're around have now taken on this slight, less than human attribute. And I don't necessarily mean to say that cars contribute to this, or that the computer contributes to this, that this is just some phenomenon, and it manifests in many different ways in the human experience, including just to yourself, that you can get lost in your own thoughts to the degree that they remove you from yourself. So partying is a humble and hopefully very efficient way to reconnect with that real you that, from what some people say, doesn't even exist. That true self at the heart of all selves that maybe we don't actually have the ability to access in the same way that truth itself remains somewhat elusive, but it is in there somewhere. And even if we could just get a glimpse of a reflection of a shadow of a corner of that true self, maybe life will be a little more gleeful and joyful, and we can experience that elusive thing called happiness just because we're alive. That's my goal. That counts as partying. Okay. In my earlier times today, when I was feeling very bad, which again has just been this running theme, I was trying to explain it to someone earlier about to this tour. It's been so painful, and I can't explain why. So I've sort of just accepted that it is a challenge. It's like an adventure. It's an odyssey. It's not supposed to be easy. I was a bit naive. There was a bit of hubris involved, I think, in this entire undertaking. Perhaps a staggering lack of thought or consideration on my part in terms of exactly what I was getting into. But that when you were compelled by the power of partying, you turn that part of your rational mind off for better or worse, and let it sort of be pulled, hopefully by your destiny or by the party gods, wherever they may be located. They are doing a lot of the pulling here. They could be pulling my leg, you know, and the whole thing could be a big trick on me, but the results usually speak for themselves. And even in these challenging moments, there is an underlying uplifting joy. It's a strange thing, but I kind of think of it like a roller coaster, that in the roller coaster, the ride is made fun ultimately by the ups and downs. So if we zoom out enough from this difficult odyssey called life, the ups and downs are actually all part of that gleeful wave of experience. So I'm trying to take it all on. Earlier today, discussing those feelings, I was saying that the whole thing has a flavor. This whole adventure, it's a new taste. It doesn't leave my mind. It doesn't leave the back of my tongue in a way. There's this texture, this buzzing consistency about doing this, and in that way it's an entirely new experience. And I'm just, again, very grateful that you're allowing it to happen, that you're part of it here. I probably won't ever do this again, for better or worse. This might be it. But I was thinking about that in sort of a sad way, and also in a scary way, that I realized that today is a one-time thing. And I don't just mean this event today, I literally mean today, October 17th, 2016, will never come again. You realize that. There was a time just a few weeks ago when I realized, even though my dad is still alive, and I'm very thankful for that, I probably won't ever play catch with him again. Now, if he heard this, he would probably be a little insulted, because he's physically able to play baseball and things like that. It's not as though... But it occurred to me there was probably some time years ago when he wanted to play catch in the yard, and I probably wanted to be watching daytime horror movies, and said, no, we'll do that another time. And then 25 years passed, and you realize, like, that was that time. That was the one time. And I don't mean it to be about procrastination or putting things off. It's more just that everything is a singular moment. And again, in a way that is extremely overwhelming, that can make it very easy to put that realization far back out of the front of our headspace. But partying, like many noble spiritual efforts, it does try to get us to live in the moment, which is the only thing we can do anyway. I mean, again, we go to great efforts to ignore that fact. It's all happening now. It's only happening now. That's all there's ever been. And yet we get caught up in all these other modes of thinking about time, past, and present. So I am thankful to realize that this one day that will never happen again in the history of the universe is happening with you now in this room. That counts as partying. Thank you. And as I was trying to describe why I was feeling so bad, I didn't want to even say that it was bad, because to say it was bad was a bit of a disrespect, a bit of a disrespect to this whole adventure. I oftentimes think about adventure movies and literature and the way that adventures are presented in culture as a way to give a new level of appreciation to those struggles. Because we wouldn't enjoy, of course, watching an adventure movie, an epic saga movie that went well and smooth the entire adventure. We wouldn't really get much out of it. It's the ordeals and the adversity that those characters face that makes the movie so powerful, the story so compelling. So I tried to keep that in mind. And in that way, those aren't even bad times in the adventure. They're hard times. And I'm trying to develop the strength to look at the challenging, hard times, not necessarily as bad times, that they count just as much as the good, or what we call easy times. And maybe they're even more valuable, because it's through those painful times, like we said before, that we can tell we're expanding ourselves and hopefully becoming who we really are. In thinking about ways to interpret these hard, not necessarily bad times, I was dealing with some, trivial irritations earlier today, annoyances, indignities, things that really were actually not bad or problematic at all, yet they were causing a very emotional, shallow, weak reaction inside me. And as I was preparing for the event, even in a kind of unconscious way, I start trying to psych myself up because I want to do this and want to do it as best I can. And I have to be, basically, this is a reason every day on this tour for me to have to be a better person. Even if I'm kind of pretending in a way to be a better person. I have to shift my mind over to what would a real person do in this situation. And by real, I mean like a noble, non-amateur human being, a professional human being, maybe someone who's very old and wise, who's lived a lot. I oftentimes think of a wizard, going back to fantasy and adventure movies. What would a wizard say about the situation I'm in, about what I'm complaining about, what I'm emotionally reacting to? How would they react to the situation? And what would they tell me, even if I didn't necessarily ask for their advice? What would they offer me that would give me that higher insight? And I think we all have the ability to very easily, essentially, imagine what a wizard would think. Now, this is oftentimes presented as what would Jesus do. It's the same idea that already in our head is that other person's mind. That it's not even that much of an effort for us to imagine what a better quality person would do or think in this situation. And these irritations that I was faced, for example, someone I was mad at because I thought they were trying to insult me through this text message. Well, it was very easy to think that, and perhaps in some ways I was justified. And then I thought, okay, well, what would, a better version of me think? Or what would my mom say about this? And she might say, well, this person's been struggling a bit lately. Perhaps they're taking out some of their frustrations on you and looking to instigate a fight. You don't have to. You can just accept it and let it go. Perhaps you just did that exact same type of text message to someone you knew and tried to irritate them and lash out at them, and you're getting mad because you're seeing someone else do it, and it's a nice way to not have to deal with your own lowness. That's something I most commonly find when someone at the security checkpoint at the airport isn't moving their bag down in the proper way, or they have the bin turned sideways instead of horizontally, and I think, oh, I can't believe this person. And then I realize, oh wow, it's strange because 2 days ago, Andrew, you did the exact same thing, and no one complained when you did it. Try to cut these people slack, and I think a wizard would always try to cut slack. Actually, in the great tradition of Bob Dobbs, we could all use a little more slack, and what a great place to deliver his most noble message. So let's, partying hopefully shortens the gap between that highest mind and our oftentimes less than noble thoughts and behavior. Let us shorten the gap by creating slack and reaching that wizard-like perspective that sees through all the nonsense and BS and weakness that otherwise clutters the way. We can do it, and wizards are there to show us as a shining, stellar example how a real human being can think if they try. Lastly, before we open the floor, just another thought. A great question came the other day at one of the events. I believe it was in Denver. No, pardon me. It was in Bozeman, Montana. And a gentleman, before he ended up spilling some beer on me, pointed out that he struggled with doing acts of goodness when he felt a sense of pride in doing them. Now, he didn't necessarily phrase it that way, and I actually shouldn't have used the word pride because that is considered not a virtue. But he felt conflicted about that desire to do good coming from some kind of self-serving place. Meaning, even when he did a favor for someone else, he didn't want to feel too good about having done it. And I had two thoughts about that. One was, there does seem to be a biological reward system set up to encourage us to do acts of kindness. And it's quite noticeable that in the larger picture, where we do oftentimes not have physical or scientific proof about these more esoteric or mystical experiences, they often have been confirmed in biology, whether it's an evolutionary survival technique, whether it's a reproductive impulse, that there seems to be nature itself rewarding us for kindness. And I don't think we should be skeptical of that or say, oh, well, that means that we're not doing true selfless acts. Selfless acts are supposed to feel good because they're selfless. There is a bit of a paradox there. But I think it's very satisfying to know, for just again, like exercise, that there can be a real material, physical, biological confirmation in this type of goodness, and that we don't need to doubt it. That self-improvement really does improve everybody. If everybody made themselves the best they could be, not in a competitive way, not in a way to get one up or get ahead of anyone else, but to truly just reach your potential, to be worthy of your own life, then most conflict would probably vanish. Now, maybe not vanish, maybe in fact we need some amount of conflict if we're going to go with that amazing, vast view of the world that sees everything balanced through its opposite. Maybe that needs to be there in some capacity, or maybe it would arise in a natural way. But the beautiful thing is, in terms of trying to extract good from life or develop goodness, there is this area that doesn't necessarily involve taking good away from people or others in our own efforts to get it. Meaning, yes, many of our material comforts and our material successes do involve some lack of others receiving them. Not everybody can have air conditioning on the face of the earth. We realize that. We'd like to think everybody could have drinking water, but there is a limited supply of some material good. But maybe the real most valuable stuff that we can cultivate are those virtues inside each other. And the beautiful thing is, no one has to have less because we become better inside. That doesn't make anyone else like, well, now that I'm more honest, I guess that person will end up being less honest. You know, I took all the honesty out of the state, the county, and now it's in short supply. That doesn't work that way. So we actually, not only, it seems that the more honesty we would cultivate in ourselves, the more it might encourage and spread throughout the county and the state and the people around us. So let us remember that these most noble pursuits are confirmed again and again and again by nature, which again we are part of. We're not separate from nature. Nature is telling us to do these things. And it's a rare, beautiful, clear and decisive message that's saying there is a right way to live. There is, in all the confusion, some clarity to hold on to, because these things must be good. They wouldn't feel right. They wouldn't propagate our own survival if they weren't bound up in some type of noble truth. We may never get to that core truth. We may never find it. In fact, it's quite remarkable to realize that the thousands of years of human civilization, neither science nor philosophy, nor, with all due respect, even religion, has been able to uncover this one absolute truth of what really is going on. Not what's going on in politics or economics or society or even culture, but what is life? What is this spark that makes us animated, this vitality, this core energy that allows us to blossom in the way that we can, as opposed to a rock? We're made up essentially of the same material. We realize that from our scientific progress, but we don't know what this thing is that animates something, that makes it alive. And even if we did discover that, we might not know what the purpose is. There's an elusive finality to truth. And yet we tear away at it. Every system of philosophy that's tried to get at what's the real nature of reality. Even if we've developed a very elegant and complex system that can account for all things, someone else could just say, oh, well, I look at life differently, and that would count just as much. So maybe there really is an absolute truth in there not being an absolute truth. And the truth is that there is no truth, and even that's not true. I'm amazed that you're cheering for that. It's quite optimistic. Some can say that's a very nihilistic point of view. The beauty, in my opinion, is that rather than being disillusioned or discouraged by this inaccessibility of that final truth with a capital T, we're supposed to quest for it. We're supposed to stay engaged. We're supposed to continue wrestling with it. We're supposed to keep up with these questions about it. Because not finding it is, in a way, finding it. And that hovering in between that state of truth is also not truth. That space that's created by a paradox of a snake eating its tail like that, that might be the space in which we exist, and in which all things exist. That hanging in the air, where something is neither one thing nor another, that might be the closest description of partying that I can give. Getting to exist in all, it has to be a party. Thank you. Okay, now let's open the floor. My nose is running, I'm sweating. This is the salt. This is all that sodium. So let's open the floor. There's a gentleman here named CW3WBW Crenshaw. He has brought out the microphone. He also goes by the name Blakey Boy, and he also plays bass guitar in my rock and roll band. Yeah. Last year or the year before, for the Viva Phoenix Festival. Very thankful to be included in that. Now to be back again. So it's always interesting to see who has the courage to ask the first question. I encourage someone to be that courageous and get the party started. Oh, look at that. Okay. Hello, sir.
Hey, Ronnie!
Oh, wow. Look at his friends already. I didn't even realize they were both here.
We actually met when you were at Zia Records.
Yeah.
We met.
Oh, fantastic.
We actually met in line.
Yeah.
That's the way we started.
I was reading a Guy Ferrari book and he started asking me about it.
That's fantastic. Thank you for both coming to this event unbeknownst to one another.
Yeah, crazy. Random question, but I want to take it back real quick.
Yeah.
You were talking about playing baseball with your dad.
Yes, catch.
Yeah, if your dad was to call you right now and ask you if you want to play catch, would you go play? To make up for that time.
Maybe not in front of everybody because I'm very poor at catching and throwing. And he probably would reprimand me as he tended to do in the past, which is probably why I wasn't that keen on playing catch that day. But I would, maybe afterwards in the parking lot, as long as there weren't cars around or other glass windows that could be broken, I may take him up on catch or even play, imaginary catch with imaginary mitts and balls like that. Just to see him, he's actually on his way to a conference in The Hague right now, of all places. So, and his birthday's coming up, but he's here in spirit, and everyone we love and care about who's had an impact on us, if their material form is not, their presence is always still there. And fortunately, his material presence is still nearby. So thanks for asking.
Hey, thank you. One last question.
Yeah.
Would you just tell him Stephen from Arizona says happy birthday?
Yes, I will. I will pass it on. That's what
Okay, so
Yes.
not sure how to word this question, but basically the ideology of partying, what religion do you believe is the closest to it out of the world? And also, it's a two-part question.
Okay.
What God would you believe you would party the best with?
Well, this is a fantastic question. I appreciate you asking it. It takes a bit of courage, I think, to go into these topics for some folks in certain climates. So I appreciate you feeling welcome and open enough to discuss.
My Christian anxiety went away a long time ago.
Okay, good. Well, I guess to continue my disclaimer from earlier, I'm extraordinary. The one thing I'm not ignorant of is my ignorance. I'm very confident in that. I'm very secure in my insecurity. But I would like to say that it strives to use the stylings or the mechanism of religion at its best as a way to approach the unapproachable. And in that way, although there have been many iterations of God, and including religions that featured many gods within one system, I would like to think personally that the most appealing outlook has been that God is a word to identify an allness that cannot otherwise be identified. These are also paradoxes, but all the biggest questions end up in this space, some similar kind of contradictory space. And there must be a reason for that. God is another way of referring to the infinite, but it's even bigger than the infinite. Some people actually don't even write the word God. They'll use a plus sign instead of the O, as out of respect that how could a human being, ever even approach the thought of this vastness? And yet, in the most mysterious, strange, and contradictory way, we are that same thing. We are that God. We're made up of the God. we've all emerged from the same source, whatever that may be. And so in this bizarre way, we're reaching towards this extreme, distant vastness that at the same time is found right inside of us, or that we came from. So it's quite baffling in the most uplifting and puzzling way. I would be very skeptical of any system that claimed to have answers. The answers that they can provide would just be answers on how to ask better questions. Or at least for me, that's been the most fulfilling. And when there starts to be too many answers that stop the questioning, then almost I start to feel like I'm stopping life. Life starts to stop. Because life isn't supposed to be something that you can wrap up in a bow and put in your back pocket and be over and done with. It's something to be engaged with until the day we die. And for all we know, that's actually just the beginning of some other version of the party. This could be the pre-party for the real party that starts upon death. We really don't know. And since we don't know, we might as well assume that it's nothing to be afraid of. If we have a choice about it, we don't have any idea really what happens. Even if it's nothingness, that could be even more party than what we're experiencing now. So God and religion, that's another way to try and reach towards understanding with the humble acknowledgement that it's the effort that counts perhaps even more than the achievement in this area. And let us all bask in the richness of that experience, of this noble effort to create a framework that gives us access to things that we might not otherwise be able to get access to. But we don't want too much access, because then that would defeat the whole need to have them. So if religion really gave all the answers, then we wouldn't need religion anymore. So they don't want that. Thank you.
The second part.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh, before I do that, it reminded me of a quote that I really love. It said that we human beings are simply the universe experiencing itself for a very brief moment in time. So I don't know.
Wait, what was the quote? It sounded good.
We are the universe experiencing itself for a brief moment in time.
I said that?
No. You reminded me of that.
I was gonna say that sounds like way better. That's way better than something I would have been able to come up with.
And what prophet or God would you believe you'd party with the hardest?
Oh well, again, like would never give God such a limited form as to give him a shape or form. You know,
Okay.
Those are like human beings trying to paint a mask on this thing, you know, or drape something over it to give it shape. I mean, I like the blue gods. Those always seem pretty cool. They have all the arms and stuff. Then you can tell that at least it's not a human. It's like, okay, that must be something more than me, because it has more arms than anything I've ever seen. They all seem pretty party as far as I can tell, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you. The more guys, the better. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Thank you for coming to the event.
I want to start off, Mr. WK. I would like to take, on my own accord, a thank you of Downtown Phoenix for coming in and giving this thing. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you very, very much. And it's been kind of a rough and tumble for the past 5 years, but this has become kind of a party town.
It's going.
It's very localized, and a lot of fun stuff's happening here. What I would like to ask you as a personal favor, I am a stand-up comedian here in Phoenix. I'm also a producer of a lot of shows. And when I was in college, I used to run a bunch of house parties, and everyone would have fun at my house parties. And now when I stopped being in bands and stopped doing house parties and I started doing stand-up comedy, I want to treat my stand-up comedy shows almost like they'd be a house party.
Wow.
How would you advise me to do promotions? I'm going to be doing a show in December at the Crescent Ballroom across the street.
Oh yeah, I've heard good things about that.
Bonus round, I had a show at Valley Bar called Literally the Worst Show Ever. We always wanted to treat our show as a house party. How would you implore me to promote that as it's not just a comedy show, it's not just a hangout and seeing new comedians, it's a party for your entire town. How would you think I should promote that?
Just like you said it right there. Really?
I've been trying, and I was like, you don't know how to throw a party.
If you can explain it to me and I can understand it, then surely anyone can understand it, because my level of understanding is, especially in this atmosphere, is sometimes skewed and distorted. So I would say it's a house party for your comedy, or something like that.
Would you mind if I put on a promotional flyer saying, Andrew WK says this is one of the best house parties for a comedy show in a bar?
Yes, you can. I give you my. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah!
Thank you. Just remember to put the periods in between the W and the K. Very much. Very good. Thank you. Thanks for asking about that. And I want to say, out of respect for true professional comedians, I admire them so much. Despite that I am standing up, this is not stand-up comedy. I would never try. First of all, I have a podium, the security this gives me. If I go like this, it just feels about 1,000 times more intense, so I move back behind this, and now I feel much more secure. But the joy of laughter is something that has brought me up and given me that joyful, undeniable physical transformative energy time and time again, just like music. It's fail-safe. It pretty much, no matter how bleak of a moment I may be in, I can just think of a song or think of someone who makes me laugh, and it changes the way that I feel from inside and out. So thank you to everyone who makes those efforts to spread laughter and joy.
Hey, Andrew. I just want to say, I live my life in a lot of fear. I read something you did one time, or basically, it was a tool. Excuse my language. It said, "Don't be a pussy. Put it in my pocket."
Wow.
Okay, so I don't need that in my pocket anymore. I just basically wanted to tell you thank you.
Internalized it.
So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. That's huge. And, I really relate to that, as you probably are aware of. I guess I'm, in all honesty, and there's people probably that are more familiar with this than others. I haven't been, let me put it that way, I haven't been the best person, or even what I would call a very good person. I've met people that I think are good people, that were most likely even born that way, and yet I wasn't. But I think with all my weaknesses and failures and struggles and these lower human capacities coming so easily to me, the one thing that I did have that was something good and redeeming was a desire to transmute those, to turn those fears, those shadow feelings into something light and good and hopeful, and we can all do that. And like you said, the fear is a mechanism. It's an energy, just like that fire. If you can harness it and turn that lead into gold, that in fact, in a way, is even a more valuable process to be engaged in than someone who can just naturally do it without any effort. No one perhaps is born a fully good, realized, self-actualized person. It's always a process. For some it may be easier than others, but we can all make that effort to become better than we were yesterday. And I give you, again, a lot of credit for allowing me to pursue that as a career. That's just an incredible privilege that your support has shown me. And the fact that you got anything out of my humble party offerings that have furthered your efforts in that's the greatest compliment you can give me. So thank you. What a beautiful name. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for being here. I've been waiting since 2004 to say this. I gave up my son for adoption, and it was the hardest decision of my life, but it was for his better good. And I named him something different, but his new parents named him Andrew. And
oh, wow.
I was at my wit's end, ready to end it all. And on the TV, I saw your video for Never Let Down. And somehow I got this feeling like I made the right decision and I can't give up because I can't let him down. And you brought a lot of light into my life just by being you. You helped me out, and you helped me carry on for a small little dude that's gonna turn 12 tomorrow. And I can't possibly thank you enough with these words.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. What do I say to that?
You are the element that turned the lead into gold, Andrew. Thank you.
Well, let me say to you, in all honesty, I mean, one, I accept that praise because even though sometimes it feels difficult to take a compliment at that level, I have felt that about other people in my life, and I've wanted them to accept my gratitude. So you're welcome, and thank you. But also, and this is more important to me to say this, whatever I gave you was already in you. Whatever you found in anything that I did or anything that anybody did that gave you strength was, as you said it, was just helping identify what you already had and reinforcing it. Because no one could put that in you and say, oh, well, here, it's from this, just take this, and now everything's going to be easy. You still did the hard work. In fact, the even more noble work of finding inspiration in something, in letting it become a source of strength or a way to tap into that deeper power in you. And I know that from my own experience of finding that in unlikely places. What you just said, that's enough to fuel my efforts for the next 30 years. So thank you, and I really admire your strength in dealing with something that is challenging, and I can only imagine has really pushed you. But thank you for sharing that with us tonight.
Hello. I've been trying to figure out how to ask you this question since I heard you were going to be in Arizona, and I still have no idea what I'm going to say.
Well, I can relate to that feeling very much. That's what I felt
This
the
is
entire
terrifying.
time.
Basically, what I do for a living, I see a lot of people in a lot of pain. And it's really, really hard to see this. And I myself have dealt with a lot of pain, like emotionally, physically in my life. And I guess my question is just like, when you're in those like deep, deep dark places, when somebody's like turning lights off at your party and like things are just bad, you know, where do you find energy to keep partying? How do you find ways to stay positive even though everything seems so bad?
Well, this is the question of all questions in a way. We find these ideas of positivity and strength and cheerfulness and resilience and dignity very appealing and easy when things are very easy and cheerful and positive and life is going great according to plan. And then in those moments of despair and adversity and confusion and darkness, you'd think that's when we would be able to really call upon them and finally use them. But that's also, for me, been the times when I've doubted them the most. Even earlier today, where I'll think, what am I doing? Like, what is this? This is just complete insanity. What am I talking about? This doesn't make any sense. I was so naive to even think you could devote your life to positivity and to partying. You know, life really is, you know, just this mess. And then there'll just be some little spark, some smaller dot on the horizon. Amidst so much other distraction that could be very worthy of our attention. But as we realize, it's all a matter of what we pay attention to. And that's why people oftentimes that we can look at for examples, they could have had every reason, or let's say, 1,000 reasons to be despondent, and yet they held on and focused on the one reason that they had to be joyful. That is a tool that I've used, not only in terms of trying to find that thing to be joyful about, whether it is, well, at least I have clean water to drink, or, well, at least I have some friends and family, or, well, at least I have any number of things. Just to shift it back into one thing to hold on to. I'll often just think of other people who have dealt with much worse than I have, and think, well, if they could have gotten through it, if they did it with a smile, if they did it with dignity, then surely I can, or I can do it as a tribute to them. I can, like the woman that said before, America, she said she was motivated to push through these challenges as out of a dedication to that child. if you can apply yourself sometimes to a sense of purpose that is more than your own well-being, that is somehow you're serving a higher cause, even if it's just the cause of humanity, the cause of joy, the cause of not giving up just for the sake of it, just to sort of thwart those forces, even if they're not tangible, that wish us harm, that wish we would give up. If there is such a thing, that's what, if you want to put a face on it, you say it's the devil trying to bring me down. Well, out of spite, just to show him that I can't be beaten, I'm not going to give up, just for the sheer sake of it. And it doesn't mean it's any easier, it doesn't hurt, but you put something at the center point, so that, like looking at a candle, like all I can actually see right now are these lights, and in a way I'm just going towards that light, and all that surrounds that light from my perspective here is just darkness, with all due respect to everybody here. This is just an example. When you're staring at a candle, everything else zooms out. And sometimes that singular focus, if you can make that candle flame just the idea of goodness, even maybe especially in an irrational way, a way that doesn't make sense, a way that defies reason, where someone would say, well, how can you focus on that one spot of light when there is all this stuff wrong? You say, because what else am I going to do? What else are we going to do? We have that power, that ability to make that choice and to live for that. And it doesn't make it hurt less, but maybe we can reorient ourselves to that pain. And again, look at it as some sort of rite of passage, some sort of proving ground, some sort of growing pain, like when your bones hurt, when you're young and you're actually growing into an adult body. These feelings are there to teach us something. And if we have the confidence of mind to trust in them in a way, to know that somehow, even with not having lived that long of a life, we can look back and see times when we have benefited from those rites of passage, that it's all part of becoming a real human being. And just don't give up. You just make a promise. You promise yourself and you promise your own life. You promise this gift of being alive that you're going to keep it going. Okay. As before I was, coming on stage here, it's almost like a blinding kind of and I want to say terror. It's like dread mixed with excitement, mixed with apprehension, mixed with confusion, and yet I just put one foot in front of the other, and next thing I know, I'm out on stage and I'm doing this. I think you can feel all those feelings and in a way, not doubt the doubt. Just accept the doubt, embrace the doubt, and say, wow, and I can feel this doubt and still do what I'm going to do. Again, having a cause or a purpose or a mission can make that feel a little less daunting. For example, myself being someone who is very shy and very introverted, for the most part still am, all those fears, those kind of social fears, weren't strong enough or big enough or worthy enough for me not to do what I felt like I was meant to do. Meaning I wanted to party more badly than I wanted to be afraid. So I focused on that. Just like if you wanted to, ride on a roller coaster more badly than not, you'll find a way to overcome that and eventually get on the roller coaster. So I don't think it's ever about overcoming doubt. I'm riddled with doubt. I don't try even to get over it. I dive into it. Sometimes the way out of the nightmare is to go deeper in. And all that energy of trying to wrestle away and push away and trick ourselves into not feeling these things, just feel it and amplify it. Feel it even more and realize, wow, I can feel completely terrified and yet I'm still not dead. So it can't be that bad. Just keep partying. That's all you have to do. Thank you for asking about that. I know it's a nerve-wracking thing to do just to get up there. Hello.
Hi, my name's Edie. 2 weeks ago, I quit smoking after 27 years of being a smoker.
Wow, congratulations. That's like an out-of-body experience from what I hear.
And while the physical cravings are gone, the mental and emotional cravings are sometimes just very horribly intense. So
yes.
I was wondering what advice you would have to kind of get through that. Just, kind of what you would do to work through it without, obviously, adding another vice.
Well, I think quitting things is an extremely empowering experience, and it's great even to find something to quit for the sake of it, even if it's not necessarily detrimental to one's health. Again, kind of that idea of contradicting oneself, breaking the pattern. breaking your life up into eras and phases so you can have different, it's almost like moving to a new place. And I'm from friends who have smoked a long time, they told me that quitting smoking was like being reborn. And not necessarily in a good, fun way, in a very challenging, baffling, disorienting way. But it's still thrilling. It's still a thrilling process. From my own limited experience with quitting things in general, I did think of it as sort of like a phase. And I don't mean that in a belittling way, but sort of like, well, I was in high school for 4 years. Well, yeah, 4 years. And there was things about it that I liked, and there was things about it I wish kind of still were happening. But I don't need to go back and go to high school again just to relive that. I can appreciate that that was a time of my life. There was, a girl that I dated that I enjoyed that time. I don't need to go and date her again just to appreciate the experience that I had. So it's also to not feel so bad about the time that was smoking or done any other activity. It's like, well, I did that, and now what? And to think of your life as this chance to, I guess, almost like, again, like the Phoenix, to rise from the ashtray. Thank you. Hello.
Hello, my name is JJ.
JJ?
Yes.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming to the event.
I have dots in my name too. So.
Yes, you never know. Louis C.K., he doesn't use the dots, but I do, and I'm glad to hear that you do as well.
So I've been waiting a long time to meet you, and it's funny because I love going to parties, and I really love when the parties end up with a lot of like philosophical discussions and like kind of late into the night, and so it's just kind of cool to party with you, with talking.
That's awesome. I understand exactly what you're talking about, and it is very precious to have those moments where that's allowed or encouraged or people indulge in it, and there's a level of comfort where we can dive into these things. And it is strange that it's not hard, but I guess there's a reason for that. There's a reason why you don't sit down on the bus next to a stranger and say, so what do you think is the meaning of life? Now, the odds are that person probably has been thinking about it a lot, but they might just think you're an insane person and get up and move to a different seat. So it's nice that we've all given ourselves this chance, and again, I really hand it to you for embracing this and diving in.
So my question, I heard you say something that kind of stuck out to me, which was that you say you don't feel like you've always been a positive person. And one thing that I feel is like my strongest emotion is anger. And it fuels me and it drives me, and the party philosophy, being able to utilize everything, it still scares me. And so how do there are all different parts of my life in performing and writing and things like, I feel like if I take on the anger, it's still scary for me. So how can I address that? How can I make that still a part of my life in some ways?
Well, that is another point that I relate to very closely. An inexplicable rage, almost a misanthropic hatred of everyone and everything. I feel that a lot. Always have. Even with people that I know and I'm close with, and it won't be rational. It won't be based on something that they did that was wrong, that I was mistreated. I'll create fantasies in my head. I have created. Anything negative like this, I try to put in the past tense. So I'd say, I haven't been able to slam dunk a basketball. Doesn't mean I can't. I just haven't yet. I haven't been someone who is, been very noble and strong in all situations. But doesn't mean I won't next time. So I'm not a bad person. I haven't been a very good person. So in those moments, that's when I try to rise, again, try to find that little breath to rise to that higher state of mind where I can look at what's really going on here. The odds are I'm being ridiculous. I'm being absurd. What can I do to use this feeling in a more positive way? For me, it's exercise. That usually is the most effective way to reset my brain. And this has been, again, a scientific studies. I wish it was more sort of mystical, but it's just really chemicals being released in the brain. Now, on another hand, I'm the first to admit I'm not a professional. There are counselors, there are therapists, there are doctors, there's all kinds of people that could approach this from many different angles. I have been working under the belief or the opinion that we don't feel these things because something is askew and needs to be fixed. That they're there to teach us something. That it's a gift as much as it's a curse. And if it still scares you, that means you still just haven't figured out how to work with it. And that could be a lifelong battle. I don't know that the quote-unquote bad feelings that I have will ever go away. I haven't really sort of hoped for that even anymore, because every good thing I've ever done was motivated by those bad feelings initially. Well, that was the spark that started the fuse and made me, make a song like Party Hard, made me want to, go up and talk to my wife for the first time, or do anything else that ever came to good for my life. My efforts started from these lesser feelings. So maybe they're not lesser at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, my name is Tim.
Hello, Tim. Thank you for coming to the event.
Thank you. My wife was supposed to come here tonight too, but she had a work emergency, and these things come up pretty frequently for her.
Sorry to hear that.
And she winds up becoming very focused in a way that feels to me like she's almost rejecting the possibility of partying for days or weeks at a time until these matters become resolved. And I would like to bring her a message tonight, but how can I translate some of the things you've said to her in a way that's not going to make her feel like should feel bad about what she's missing out on?
Well, I would say missing out, feeling as though one's missing out on partying doesn't count as partying. And at the same time, being extraordinarily committed to one's work and responsibilities can also count as partying. And feeling as though you're losing her to this, I would encourage you to let her be. Not every answer is going to be a very good answer, I guess.
Hello, Andrew.
That's the risk. Hello.
My name's Nate. I find myself often feeling very jaded and as though people who do care greatly about me do not. This may be spurred on by something.
Say that again. The people that you care greatly about don't care greatly about you, or vice versa.
People that I know care greatly about me, I feel as though they don't, and I feel jaded.
I see. I see. You doubt their care.
Yes.
Okay. I can relate to this.
Okay, that was the first part. Was can you relate to that?
Well, don't wish that I could. I mean, you should feel bad for me that I can relate to that. I feel bad for everybody that can relate to all my weaknesses. At the same time, I'm glad. It's a strange thing. I'm glad that you can relate to these dark feelings because it confirms them and we can counsel each other. But I also feel some sympathy and I feel some regret that you can. So that's just another disclaimer. But continue, please.
Yeah. Well. Not to say that I feel glad that you feel that, but
no, I understand.
Part of the question was, do you feel feel that way?
Yes.
And how do you deal with that when you are experiencing that?
Well, that I think would be me at a lower mode, where there's something satisfying and sort of, no one cares about me. I don't need them. They're just faking it. All they care about is this. Now, I can say that perhaps, now this is what I would tell myself. I say, well, Andrew, you're in an unusual position because a lot of the people that you're close with it's work relationships. A lot of my friendships have been skewed by dynamics based on their day-to-day life being very different than my day-to-day life. I have had very few close friends my entire life, and this has always baffled me. In one hand, it's been very natural. I haven't made an effort to have few close friends. My mom, she said, oh, it's just, you've been like that since you were 3 years old. It's just everyone has their own path when it comes to social interactions. But I have found myself, over the years, especially more recently, engaging in what you're describing. And I think it's a way of sort of justifying a lack of responsibility as a friend in advance. I've had people who rather than quit a job working with me have wanted me to fire them so they could say, well, you know, screw him, he fired me after all that. Where they put themselves in a position to be so disliked that I would have no choice. And I think that's sometimes what I've done, is I've tried to say, well, this person, you know, they don't really care about me, and they're not my real friend, and they're just in this for this X, Y, and Z, so that I can then excuse my bad behavior and my lack of kindness and consideration and all these other things. Now, that's a type of brutal honesty that isn't very fun for me to think about. It's essentially just very immature, underdeveloped social behavior. And if I go into that wizard headspace, where Gandalf is talking to me, you know, he's not judging me too bad. He kind of probably thinks the whole thing's a little funny. He helps me feel a little bit better about it. Maybe, you know, gives me that perspective that allows me to overcome it in a lighthearted way, that these sins are not unforgivable. There's something to actually rejoice in. And if we can almost kind of get off, like almost in a psychedelic kind of way, in diving into our worst aspects, it's great, because then we actually can do something about it. And the first thing is just admitting it. Just, wow, okay, well, I'm basically being just a little kid right now, and probably could do better than this, and my mom would probably like to see me do better than this, and these friends, these people I'm around, they are worth better behavior than this, and then you try to actually muster up the strength to be that. But if you can't, you can pretend to be it, and I know a lot about that too.
Thank you.
My brother, I have picked on him quite a lot, my younger brother, for not saying please and thank you enough. And I say, Mom and Dad raised us better. You should always say please and thank you, especially when it's with strangers or people at a restaurant, or if you're renting a car. Gotta say, please, may I get the insurance? No, thank you, I don't want the insurance. I said, Andrew, I'm a nice person. These things are implied. He said, you know, you say please and thank you because you're pretending to be a nice person. And I realized he was right. Really got me. Hello.
How's it going? So I'm going to start my question with like a little personal story that you were actually a part of, in a way. I had a really core, close group of friends. I still do. Started in high school, but went to college together. And whenever we would party, we would always sneak your songs into playlists. And whenever your songs would come on, we would just start tipping things over at whatever party we were at. Wow. And then nobody else but the three of us would have any idea what was going on. So like people would look like crazy.
Would you be like tipping over glass?
Like anything that was in the room. Like we would like chairs, like anything. We would
not necessarily breakable items?
No, yeah,
okay.
Nothing destructive.
Okay,
but we would just start tipping things over, and people at the party would think we're crazy. But that was like the kind of fun that the three of us would have together.
I like that. That's awesome. Thank you for including me in music for a soundtrack.
But now, this is years later, and actually those two guys I'm talking about, like, super not fun anymore. They're like the opposite of embracing the party. And
did they agree with this assessment?
I think so. They're not here, and they can't hear me. But basically, they become like really negative people. Let's put it that way. They become super negative over the past, 5-10 years. And I just don't know if you've ever run into that, where people who you're close to, who you used to like have a really strong bond with, like started being real negative and like almost felt like they were bringing you down in a way.
Sure.
And how you confronted that.
Well, I've been that person for most of the other people around me, I think, where I became, in their eyes, real bad and negative and nasty. So I have a lot of, I can relate to these other guys and think, oh, these guys sound like someone I would probably like to hang out with. That sounds like my kind of person. See, I'm telling you that this is all the exact opposite of what a lot of people expect, that they think I'm this naturally, it's a desperate effort every day to pull out of this feeling of despair and darkness. So you probably would teach me a lot more than I could teach you about positivity, and your friends maybe even as well. I would just, again, since it already came up, I would cut them slack. I would cut them a lot of slack. It seems like people have their own path. I realize that you care about them, and this is coming from that place. You want them to be happy. We can't make someone else happy. It's a strange thing. It seems like the most natural, easy thing to do, or almost the most noble thing that we could ever do, is to make someone else feel good and make their life good. they have to want that. They have to choose that. Again, from my own experience, if I'm in a bad mood, there's very little that someone else could do to force me out of it. In fact, maybe actually just telling me that they cared about me and they wanted me to feel better would be the most effective thing. And then just let me be. Sometimes pushing against that resistance just inflames it. So, at the very worst, you had a great run with them and you tipped over a bunch of stuff in a non-destructive way. And maybe at the best, they'll circle back around, and no matter what, you can always love them. And that's the one thing that we all can do.
Sure. Thanks, man.
It's okay to go easy on people. I really think that's something I've really enjoyed about life, is just realizing you could just let people be. And that all that energy that went into trying to fix other people or make them better, you could kind of just put that into your own behavior. If someone was doing something that you didn't like and misbehaving, of course it's very tempting and natural to want to correct that, especially depending on what the relationship is like. But oftentimes the most effective thing is to realize that we can't make them behave a different way. We can vow and promise ourselves that we won't ever act that way. We see this a lot in culture and in society, especially these days with what's going on in the political realm, which I wasn't going to mention at all. But these are shining examples that give us this hugely illustrated display of how we may or may not want to behave, how we may or may not want to treat people, how we may or may not want to inhabit our life. So that should be the greatest thing. If somebody wrongs you, of course there's this desire to get revenge and to get back at them or to make some kind of impact. But it's also perhaps more satisfying and effective to say, well, I promise I will never do that to someone else. Yes? Hello, how are you?
My name is Emma.
Hello, Emma. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you for having us. So I was just wondering if there was a moment in your life, like an aha moment, that inspired you to become this party god in a way, or if like it's always been in you.
I'm just a demigod, if you get that. I'm really just a jester
Party
trying to
prophet.
entertain the party gods who are just laughing. They just can't believe that they've tricked me into doing this. But it's the best trick. Sometimes a magic trick is the magician tricking you into thinking that he's even doing a magic trick at all. And that's where all the effort is going into. There was no aha moment, although I like the idea of that. Those flashes of inspiration that you feel like your whole life depends on. I guess they happen to some people. I don't know if I believe them when they talk about it. It seems a little unlikely. It seems that the aha moment is being born, and then the rest is like many small aha moments, realizing that you were born and trying to actually realize that happened, because it's so intense.
So has this always been you? It's just from straight out of the womb. You're like, this is me. Or have you work?
How else? Who else could it be?
Yeah.
As far as I know, I am the same person that I've always been.
So, but has this always been your occupation?
Oh no, I didn't become a professional partier until I moved to New York. I was 18, so at 1920, all my dreams had been shattered, and the devastation of that was so humbling that I was in a state of forced openness, and that's when the party gods could pull me towards destiny. I thought that life was based on you decide what's the most fun thing for you to do and what you like the most, and then you set goals and then you make plans and then you achieve those, and then you create this path and you push towards it, and then you go to your dreams and you accomplish things and you make ambitions. Well, for me, and I think for maybe many folks, it doesn't necessarily work out like that, and that can be quite discouraging. And then you realize that maybe destiny, instead of pushing towards your dreams, destiny pulls you towards a dream that you wouldn't even have dared to dream. Because if someone had told me that I could get away with being a professional partier, I'd just say that's impossible. You have to do something in life. You have to, make something, or, be a fashion designer. That's what I initially had wanted to be. That's what got me to move to New York. Well, that didn't go so well. Despite my enthusiasm for sewing, and getting a job at a very esteemed place called Comme des Garçons, I did not turn out to be a fashion designer, much to my shock. And then it turned out that all these small little, more subtle parts of myself, like learning how to play piano when I was a child, I never thought that that would be my profession. I thought that would be as unlikely as learning how to tie your shoes so you could be a professional shoe tire or something like that. All these things that made me me in this sort of underwhelming way, those turned out to be what I was able to put to good use. So it was almost the striving and pushing was to sort of convince myself that you didn't have to strive and push. You could just be pulled. It's a lot scarier because I have no idea what's going to happen and I can't plan anything. And there's a frustrating, again, kind of humiliating part to that I'm not in control of this. But the party guys are really cool and they have very fun things in store most of the time, even if it's a bit scary. So I feel very privileged to do their bidding. And that, even to this moment, right now, is a bit of a aha moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, yes.
Hello, Andrew.
Hello there.
Before I ask the question, so I've been listening to you for a long while now.
Well, it's been like, what, an hour and a half?
Well, your music.
Oh, okay.
Your music.
Appreciate that.
And so just a little bit of backstory on my part. So back in 2001, it was the first time seeing you in Albuquerque, New Mexico with some friends.
At the launch pad?
Yeah.
Oh, that was our first time ever playing in New Mexico, so
Yeah.
that's amazing you were there. Thank you for sticking with the party for 15 years. That is no small feat. Thank you. Wow.
So that was my first time seeing you live. My friends and I waited for you to meet you after the show, and you were very, very generous with your time. And so we were sort of like waiting. We didn't want to like cut in line or any of that, and you were giving people a lot of time individually, so it was really awesome. And it started getting pretty cold towards the end, and it was getting late, and you led us onto your bus, which was super awesome, and then you gave us some candy bars.
That is an ongoing theme in my partying. I do like candy, especially giving it. It's a year-round Halloween vibe.
And then we went to the back of your bus, and you were listening to Shania Twain, which I thought was awesome.
It was the Up album, probably, had just come out. Yep.
It was the Up, and then I think you changed it to Hate Breed or something like that. I'm not sure.
Contrast.
Yeah. So we had that little kind of connection, which I thought was awesome.
That's fantastic. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, and then years later, went to see a Warped Tour, and then I went, and then like I found out there was a raffle, and then I won an electric guitar from you.
Oh, the LTD.
Yes.
That's amazing. Well, you deserved it. I'm glad you won. See, that's the party gods bestowing the gift upon those who are worthy of the gift. That's so satisfying.
So I am a believer.
That's a great backstory. Thank you for sharing that.
Of the partying way. And so this whole idea of partying, and just so she's not saying it, my name is Samuel, this is my girlfriend Mary.
Hello. Hi, Mary.
And so this whole idea of partying, I grew up in a family, a big family, and lots of people's ideas of partying are the very more traditional, superficial sense in terms of going out and partying and getting drunk, and there's no deeper meaning to it. And so I've never taken part in that, fortunately for myself at least, and I like this idea of taking the idea of partying and keeping that superficial fun idea, but also making it into a deeper idea where there's a lot more meaning and life-changing meaning in it. And so I appreciate all these things that you talk about and all of this way of thinking. And so what I'm hoping to do is pass it on to this little bump inside of her stomach.
Oh, wow. Congratulations in advance.
Yeah, thank you.
That's the partyest thing of all.
And so this little guy is going to pop out any point now. And so what I'm wondering is, how do you have any advice for passing on these ways of thinking so that he doesn't just think of partying as this one thing, but that it has many facets and dimensions and ways of thinking about it, and most of all that it should be a positive thing? Because other people that I've seen party use it as a destructive thing.
Well, as we talked about at the very beginning of tonight, newborns, once they're able to communicate, they probably could teach us more about partying than we could ever teach them. So not only would I listen to what he or she, is it, you said a he?
Mm-hmm.
He has to say, but also the best service I think anyone can do as a parent or as any custodian of another human being, even including just our fellow brothers and sisters here, is to help clear the way for those natural inclinations to shine out. The child is born with these noble ideals very much in heart. I don't think it's something that is even taught. It's quite astounding in that way. It's usually something that is destroyed in the passage to adulthood. So to protect and cherish that spark, that flame that's burning in the child already, amplify it, refine it, focus it, and just make sure it doesn't get tampered out by discouragement, by bullying, by the intensity of the world, but to help. It's a privilege to be a parent or anyone that has the ability to bring a life in and then set it on its way, to give it the freedom and the space to be and to protect it from those forces that would try to crush its spirit.
Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations. Congratulations. And this will be our final question. And then we'll proceed to the outer area for more hanging out and more partying.
Excellent.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for being here, Andrew. My name is Jordan. I'm a big fan. I'm really glad to be here tonight.
Thank you very much.
I've been listening to you talk a lot about the quote-unquote party gods. And it seems to me that's kind of a non-traditional way to talk about fate, in a way.
Sure, yeah.
I'm wondering about your opinions on fate and free will, and if anything really has any meaning at all, and if we're just being pulled along by some invisible strings or something.
Well, it's an excellent question. This is a great grand finale here. So, I think going back a bit to this inability to know absolutely about anything initially can inspire that type of meaninglessness feeling. But there's again a certain type of clarity in that confusion. An ability to focus on the blur, to know that we don't know, is a type of knowing. As far as how to put that into use or forward motion, or how to relate that to something like free will or fate, we have the ability to consider things. Now, I don't know if there's much to be gained out of the debate as to whether or not our thoughts are being thought for us by something else or someone else. Does it really matter? Does it change the experience of having a thought? Does going through our life with the idea that everything is predestined really change the feeling of these experiences? I don't know. In one weird way, we can say, and we've heard this said time and time again, that we are all one thing. But it really is true in this sense. We're all made of the same material structure. We're separated in some strange way into these various bodies and spatial areas like objects and things, but it is all one manifestation of nature, right? So in some sense, there is no control over individual decisions. Just like do cells make individual decisions about where they go? Does any individual part of a larger system really have the ability to move out and distance itself or separate itself entirely from that system? It might have the illusion or the impression that it is, and that might be fine. It doesn't necessarily matter one way or another. And maybe that ties into what you're saying about meaninglessness. Maybe wondering about meaninglessness is essentially meaninglessness. Meaning that it doesn't mean anything to think about it. And if we go down that rabbit hole, what are we left with? We're left kind of stuck. And it seems to contradict this very life force feeling that is the opposite of being stuck. It's this movement, it's this ever tireless progress, this not necessarily forward movement, but movement in general. Nothing is resting, everything is growing, everything is expanding. That's the opposite of meaninglessness. That is something that is so rich with meaning that we can't even really comprehend it. And in our humble inability to comprehend this, it's nice and satisfying in a way to say, oh, well, then it's all just meaningless, this, because I don't get it. It's too complicated, basically, for humans, so it must just be nothing. Well, as the great Alan Watts said, that's basically just a put down to existence. It's very thrilling in an emotional and ego-boosting way to be able to put other things down. And I think this goes back to that childhood process where you're first born, everything's beautiful and wonderful, then you start to say, well, I don't like this person, you know, he's stupid. And I don't like that food, it doesn't taste good. And I don't like this song, it's dumb. And I don't like this kind of politics, it's stupid and dumb. And I don't like this whole city or this whole country. And you go piece by piece putting bigger and bigger things down to keep that thrill going until you put down the biggest thing of all, which is reality. Just a big put down for reality to say it has no meaning. Its meaning transcends our ability to even know what it would mean. And that should be enthralling. And we should marvel in awe that we get to participate in this, that we're made of this thing that defies our very understanding, rather than just throw it over our shoulder and say, well, that's done, it means nothing, now what? Partying is deciding that it must be good to be alive or we wouldn't be alive. Thank you. And in the spirit of those most noble masons that build these most noble structures, let us each build our own life into a temple worth inhabiting, a temple worth the life force inhabiting, to build the world around us into something that is worthy of the life force itself. So with that in mind, please stay strong. Keep partying, you know, don't doubt everything. Hold on to some shreds of hope. We do have what it takes. There's nothing more powerful than a human being, and we each happen to be one as far as I can tell. So let's put all those powers to good use. Let's put those powers towards partying. The bad times aren't necessarily the hard times, and the hard times aren't necessarily bad times. Stay strong, keep the party going, and I'll see you out there. Thank you.